G'day guys, bit of a different Melbourne Cup preview from me this year. Rather than go through runner by runner and spend a lot of time on it, I thought it was better to this year, because it's a bit of a funny addition, to show you what I look for to differentiate runners between, dominant sorts of horses and horses that are more one-paced and, need things to go their way, rely on tempo and a good ride and just sort of hitting the front at the right time, rather than, be able to use their sustained turn of foot. Basically what I'm trying to find, horses that can run out the trip and can get themselves out of trouble, make their own luck, can be ridden for that, so they can sort of be ridden a little bit quieter. They can, wait for gaps to come and take them and be dominant over the field late. They're not in the race every year, and this year's a little bit tricky, but I sort of found a few that I thought were close enough and worth identifying. Horses I'm talking about are horses like, Without a Fight, Fiorente. Cross Counter was very good, sustaining a run from the back. Mackay Diva, obviously a horse that fits that bill perfectly. She just had that long sustained turn of foot that was superior to anything else. So this year, I thought there were a couple of runners that sort of were worth highlighting. I'll show some replays to show what I'm basically talking about. The first horse is Half Yours, obviously won the Caulfield Cup. This is the Caloundra Cup over 2,400 metres earlier in the year. So, this horse chimed in from sort of a midfield position, and this last 200 metres is just what I love, when horses pin their ears back and can extend away, putting margins on their rivals. This is 2 starts back. So this is the Caulfield Cup. It had another run in their Turnbull at Wait for Age, where it ran the fastest late sections, and this is the Caulfield Cup, where it came from sort of a midfield position. It wasn't dominant there, but it was certainly good enough, I thought. And that's Valiant King, just for we're just pointing Get Valiant King in the grey out as well, just for later, because I will talk about it as well. But that's Half Yours. I think it sneaks into the race really well with 53 kilos. Hasn't run 3,200 metres before. Copped a 2 kilo penalty for winning that Caulfield Cup, but I still think it's really well weighted. Obviously, the horse has been up for a while, and it's not an easy task. But this horse is just keeps showing up. Apparently, it paraded excellent prior to the Caulfield Cup. If it's kept that condition, and it's obviously got to run the trip, it just has that beautiful long sustained run. There were a lot of similar runs in that Caulfield Cup. Horses sort of got dragged back. The leader got away. They went really quickly, and this horse was able to sort of come around, sustain the run better than anything else. As I said, still only carrying 53 kilos. So I think Half Yours has to be a leading contender here, and certainly ticks those boxes. The next horse is our Riffa. So this is him on the outside here. Interesting about our Riffa, I think he never stretched beyond 2,400 metres until last 2 starts. So 2 starts ago, over 2,800 metres. In this race here, this is the Curragh Cup, carried 62 kilos, and a little bit different weight scale. But here, just look how dominant he is late. And to me, he was a little bit one-paced over the 2,400 metres and shorter, and not until he got out to this distance range, and as he obviously going from 28 to 32 here, did he show this beautiful long sustained sprint. So shows what the difference is between that 2,400 metre and beyond mark for me. But super strong there. And this is the Irish St. Ledger, where he was actually ridden beautifully, came from the back and sort of weaved his way through. But the margins that open up right throughout this field, and again, he carried 61.5 here. This is a proper Group 1. Not many horses bring proper Group 1 form into the race this year. So this is our Riffa in the Australian bloodstock colours now, coming around the leader's heels. You can see how well he's travelling. But it's all everything happens late, and that's another good thing. When stayers can open up gaps and margins late, that's a great sign. They've got that turn of foot. They've got that sustained sprint. So you just watch all the horses behind. You sort of 3 by 3 by 3. They were a bunched group of horses, not 300, 400 metres out. This is Valiant King, the other horse I want to speak about. So actually, I'll go back to our Riffa very quickly. 59 kilos in a Melbourne Cup, nearly impossible. It's nearly an impossible task, but this is not a normal Melbourne Cup. The weight, range is 8 kilos, 59 to 51, but there's not a lot of quality in between. So there are a couple of horses down the bottom that are scary for sure, but this horse is all quality. He's only had, not many starts. He's right on the up. He's only got to this distance range recently, and they obviously haven't looked after him with 59 kilos, and he has got an awkward draw, but Mark Zahra aboard. He's absolutely airborne at the moment. I think they'll ride this horse a little bit quiet. Hopefully there's some good tempo up there, and like I said, if he's one of these horses that can sustain that long sprint, they can overcome those things. They've just got to be looked after the first half, and then they look after the second half. So this is Valiant King. He's an interesting horse. Ran well in the 2023 Caulfield Cup behind Without a Fight, and then obviously had an issue, didn't make it to the Cup that year. That Without a Fight year was much stronger than this year's Caulfield Cup for mine. He then had another preparation last time, went to Chris Waller. I don't think he was anywhere near his best last spring, got beat 5 lengths in the Melbourne Cup. This time in, he sort of put in a bit of a weird one first up. He was back on the inside. You really couldn't tell. He had a little quiet trial, and then second up off a brutal tempo set by Gilded Water out in front. This is him, the grey, sort of extending. This is second up off a trial and a very, basically barrier trial first up as well. And how strong he was through the line there. I'm not going to say that he was looked after in the Caulfield Cup, but I don't think they were upset to lose is how I'd best put it, because we see the winner got a 2 kilo penalty. This horse avoids that 2 kilo penalty. So he sneaks in with 51 kilos. If he runs the 3,200 metres out, the form that he's in, I believe he will. I believe he's, just behind the other two probably, but in career best form and likely to run very well here. There were a few that just missed the Cup. I'll put up the selections, probably the best way to put it. So main players, the 3 we've talked about. Then we've got Buckaroo, who I think he's got a sprint, but it's only very short. You've seen his run up to Vicestina a couple of times at Wait for Age to win and just struggled to get past her. And I think he just sort of peaks on his run a little bit. Last year, very similar, was given a terrible ride, but showed that he can't sustain a long run. He put in a beautiful sprint around the bend, made up many lengths, and then last he was out of gas. So I think he needs to be ridden a little bit more patiently here, ride for a bit of luck, and then we'll be able to see a talented horse. But he just really needs to be cuddled. Other horses, More Felons, I think is dangerous. Another horse that's coming off a long break, but has always shown good ability and run very well in sort of the Metrop, and then a really slow run race last time. Wide draw. Tommy Berry gives him a good ride. He can run a race. Absurd. This is the 3rd time tackling, but first time they give him a run in the Caulfield Cup this time in. I think that was a very smart thing to do. And now he tackles this race. I believe he's got a good draw. He's drawn perfectly in 4. Karen McAvoy, he can just suck up on the fence somewhere midfield or a little bit worse and put in a similar effort to what he did last year, where he's a little bit unlucky. I think this race is slightly stronger, but not a lot. Arapahoe's a big price horse I think can improve, especially if the rain sticks around overnight. Thought he went well in the Bendigo Cup the other day, just a huge, strong bias down the outside. The fence was on fire there and he came down the outside. Land Legend's a horse with the earmuffs removed. Everyone who knows anything to do with me knows I've had a love-hate relationship with this horse. I think they've set it for one race. Horrible failure last start, but he's going to be 50, 100 to 1. He's throwing in the multiples. Chevalier Rose probably wants it dry. Not going to get that ideally, but still a huge price and goes in multiples. River of Stars was very good in the Caulfield Cup. Chris Waller very bullish about his chances, which has probably really honestly swayed me to put him in there. He obviously gets a good guide on his own horses in these races. And Royal Supremacy is the other horse that I thought is not ready mentally for this race, but just has the ability. And if he happens to settle, he could win. Very unlikely that'll happen. I think he'll get going keen and be a nightmare for the rider in this race. But this time next year, he could be very dangerous. So, again, I think that was about it. Buckaroo, More Felons, Absurd, Land Legend, Arapahoe, Chevalier Rose, Further. I didn't talk about Further. Coming out of a really strong race in the UK last start. Looked a bit one pace, but it's a bit like the Japanese horses when they come out here. When you come out of those strong staying races and you get beat a few lengths, that's well and truly up to, the Group 3 and listed races that we see a lot of the others come through and, look a little bit better to the eye. But I thought its effort was good enough. And, they're just horses I'm sort of throwing in. Exotics with probably half yours, our Riffa and Valiant King for a smaller portion stood out. I think it's a tough race this year for sure. I definitely don't think it's one of the easier versions. But, yeah, they're my thoughts. And, obviously every year go through the same process trying to identify these horses. They're the ones that I think most fit the bill this year. Good luck if you're playing. Good luck with the whole day. It's never easy. The whole week's an absolute war of attrition. Hopefully you got off to a good start on Derby Day with some really talented horses going around and winning there. And hopefully, we have a bit of luck tomorrow. All the best. Cheers, guys.
What are you really gambling with?